Hi everyone, and welcome to this GreenSQL product demo. In this demo, we'll go through GreenSQL different features and we'll also go through the setup phase. GreenSQL was started in order to provide an all-in-one solution for a database, for multiple databases on-prem and in the cloud. So as time passes, we see that a lot of companies spend more and more money on information security. And with that, we'll see almost on a daily basis a new massive breach that companies have encountered with. And this shows us that it doesn't matter which attack vectors and who are the attackers that will attack an organization, the final destination will always be information. And when we're talking about information, most of the time this information is stored inside of a database. So in any case that we see a database, and it doesn't matter which type of database and which type of information is being kept inside of the database, we're always talking about two types of connections. The first one is automated connection, which means any application that have a connection string set and is using the database to view information, to delete information, and sometimes even to do a minor configuration level like setting up new views and different types of setups. And the other one is a user-based connection, meaning any DBA and any developer and any privileged users that have the option and have the credentials to connect directly to the database. And then you have a much more option to do than a specific set of queries. When thinking about database security challenges, we can think about a lot of different points, but eventually it sums up to three main questions. Where is the sensitive information is located inside of your database and who have option to see it and to access the sensitive data? The second question is how can you truly implement segregation of duties? How your root database user or SA will not have the option to view sensitive data and it will never be exposed to your customer information. And on the other hand, your applications will have the option to access this sensitive information, but should never have the option to run any kind of administrative command. And the last and third question, that it's an extremely important one, how can you mitigate third-party vulnerabilities like SQL injections, for example? Even though SQL injection is out there for more than 15 years, it's still one of the biggest issues when we're talking about enterprise applications. How can you mitigate it at the database layer and not at the application layer? During the past few years, we see a huge movement by multiple type of compliances where they move in order to actually focus on the data itself. And we see a lot of different regulation and compliances that now are requiring to be focused on the data. Just an example, PCI DSS 3.0 requires you to actually have extremely stricted policy when people are accessing the cardholder data. So what a GreenSQL is all about? GreenSQL is a reverse proxy system, meaning any connection from any application, from any DBA goes first to GreenSQL and only then it gets to the database itself. GreenSQL is actually installed as a front end to the database because once GreenSQL is installed, no one should have direct access to the database. The reason that we chose this kind of an approach in order to secure databases is in order to dramatically reduce the attackability surface of the database. I guess this is about everything in information security is about mapping the attackability surface. When people are attacking a database server, most of the time they do not attack the database application themselves. Itself. They're looking for the weakest link. And when we're talking about actually mapping the different components of a Microsoft SQL Server, just an example, Microsoft SQL Server 2012, during the past 2 years, only 2 vulnerabilities. And still, we see almost on a daily new breach of companies that use Microsoft SQL Server. The thing is that the attack vectors of a Windows operating system and any third-party application that runs there can provide a lot of different attack surfaces. By using GreenSQL as a reverse proxy, no one should have direct access to the operating system. So GreenSQL working as a reverse proxy can also provide a lot of different cloud platforms when can support. And when we're talking about multiple types of databases in the cloud, eventually it sums up to two options. The databases that you install by your own on your VPS, or database as a service that is provided today by multiple vendors like Amazon RDS, Microsoft SQL Azure, VMware Cloud Database, and also Google SQL Cloud. And when we're talking about database as a service, you do not have the option to run anything or even access the operating system that runs this database, and you cannot also place any component as part of the infrastructure. So GreenSQL support all those database platforms in front of you. So what GreenSQL really supports and provides you, we provide database security, database activity monitoring, sensitive data discovery, and dynamic data masking. So let's start with setting up the system. One of the key differentiators at GreenSQL is the ease of use. The entire setup will take exactly 2 minutes. So once GreenSQL is installed and GreenSQL is provided as an execution to be installed on any Windows operating system, any Linux operating system, and also as a virtual appliance that you can just upload to your virtual infrastructure. So once GreenSQL is up, the first thing you'll have to set a password. We also comply with multiple regulation about the password structure. So I'm just setting the password. Once this password is set up, then you get a quick connect wizard in order to set up your database locations and where exactly the instance is located. So I'll just create my infrastructure. I will choose a Microsoft SQL database. I will set the name. I will provide credentials in order to run sensitive data discovery and other types of users, and I'll also set the proxy that I would like to run. I will press the check connections. Once it's confirmed, I can create it, and that's about it. And as you can see, now the connection between GreenSQL and the database have been established, and no application yet is connecting to GreenSQL in order to access the database. I'll finish the setup. One more thing that I'd like to set up is actually LDAP configuration in order to have an Active Directory setup. So I can go to the LDAP server configuration, enable Active Directory, set the domain, and for this case we'll use anonymous. We'll test the connection successfully, and we'll update the configuration. And that's it. In order to make sure that the connection is actually running, I'll just connect through GreenSQL to the database in order to see that the connection is established and everything is running correctly, and then we can go forward with the different features. As you can see, I've just connected to the GreenSQL, and I'm able to do any task that I'm interested in. So the system is running, and now we can continue to see the different feature sets. So database security. As part of the database security, we provide three main features: database firewall, segregation of duties, and SQL injection detection and prevention. Because GreenSQL works as a reverse proxy to the database, all the communication goes through GreenSQL. And in this case, we can go to security. And under security, you can see that we can create three different rules types. The first one is a learning mode, and a learning mode is a very traditional approach to database security when we're talking about the system should actually study a specific query or all query that are coming from all sources or from a specific source. A source can be an IP address or a range. It can be a database user or a group of users. It can be an Active Directory, specific entity, and also even an application name. When the system is up and running, I'm able to limit those specific learning and store them in a specific group. So for this example, I will just create that I would like to study any connection connecting from a specific proxy and store everything in an allowed group. Once I created the allowed group, I can create this rule. Once this rule is created, I will just reorder the policies in order to make sure that this rule will be first in a waterfall-based policy. Once this is running, I will just execute a few queries to the database. For example, we'll go to the table person contact and we'll just view the first 1,000 rows. Once I executed these commands, I can go to the query groups, and under Learn Patterns, you can see all the patterns that have been studied by GreenSQL. And once this process is over and I've finished to run all the required queries to the database, I can disable or just delete this rule. And when I'm going to create a new policy, the second type is a database firewall. Once I choose a database firewall, I'm able to choose uh, three different types of database firewall: query group, table-based, or procedure-based. Once I choose a query-based, now I'm able to choose a specific group of queries that I've just studied, and I'm able to decide whether I'd like to allow it to a specific source or I would like to block it. Anytime that I'm choosing a blocking action in GreenSQL, I have the option to choose one of three different blocking actions. An empty result set, meaning GreenSQL will provide an empty result set to the query. I can choose close SQL connection in order to close the connection right away between the user that is connecting to the database, and I also can create a specific generate SQL error that someone who's trying to run the query will get it. So the second type of policy that I can create is a table-based. And this is a more new approach to database security where I'm able to choose a specific table inside of my database, as you can see in front of you now. I'm going to sales, and under sales, I'm choosing credit card. Once I chose this specific table, I'm able actually to define the type of access that I would like to allow to a specific source. For example, my DBA that is connecting from this IP address, and he's using the administrator's database users, and he's actually using the Microsoft SQL Server Studio. Anytime that he's connecting to this table, he should only have administrative access. And vice versa, anytime that my DMZ network, for example, I'm able to choose multiple type of policies, and let me just create a new rule. Anytime, as well in a table-based configuration, anytime that my DMZ network is connecting to the database, and my DMZ have this IP scope, when it's connecting to any table, they should never be allowed to run any administrative commands. Meaning that I'm able, and this brings us directly to segregation of duties, when you can truly enforce the type of policy that you're interested over a one database, over a one instance, or according to your own needs. The third type of a database firewall is actually procedure-based, meaning you're able to actually define who should have the option to execute a specific store procedure or a group of store procedures. For example, when I'm choosing a specific database, I'll choose the use update employee login. And this specific store procedure will only be allowed to be executed from a specific location. Even if I'd like to choose a specific user from my Active Directory configuration, I'm able to choose that and to allow only a specific source to execute a specific store procedure. The third type of rule that you can create in database security is actually a risk-based. And any rule that you create under risk-based can work as an intrusion prevention system, what's called an active protection, or as an intrusion detection system, which means monitoring. This tiny checkbox of SQL injection detection actually enables three different engines. If you would like to get more information about how we mitigate SQL injection, please check our video channel and you can see a full session about SQL injection mitigation. We also provide you the option to create your own risk profiles. Risk profiles means that we go through all the different possibilities that are part of the protocol, and we actually have divided them to 5 main groups: view, modify, delete, create, and run objects. And you're able to define which exact object you'd like to allow or prevent. If you have a DBA orientation and you're knowledgeable about databases, you can go to advanced mode and actually see all the different possibilities that are part of the protocol. So you're able to have an extremely low resolution configuration if you're interested regarding each and every possible option of the database. So just in order to sum up the security features, we provide you a full database firewall, a query-based, a table-based, even a store procedure-based. We provide you the option to enforce segregation of duties over a one database, over a one instance, or through multiple ones, and also the option to create SQL injection mitigation at the database layer. Going forward to sensitive data discovery. Sensitive data discovery provides you the option to know where is the sensitive data, as well as to generate all the policies that you need regarding auditing and masking. So sensitive data discovery is actually the only enabler to any database security solution, because it doesn't matter how sophisticated is your database security tool, without knowing where is the sensitive information located, you're not able to configure it correctly. So going forward with sensitive data discovery, we provide you an extremely easy to use mechanism. Once I go to discovery, I can create a job. In this example, we create a job that we'll just call it PCI, and HIPAA. You're also able to scan for Sarbanes-Oxley sensitive data. So you can choose a specific instance, and inside of this instance, you're able to choose a specific database. I'll choose the AdventureWorks, and you can also define the scheduling when you'd like it to run, once a day, once a week, or a monthly execution, or upon a schema change. Once I just decided to run it now, the entire process takes exactly a minute, and GreenSQL goes to the database, randomly retrieve 1,000 rows, and it's exactly 1,000 that we randomly retrieve from multiple locations inside of your database. And once we have retrieved those 1,000 rows, we analyze the content. And you can see now it's in progress, and in just a few seconds it should be done. And once we actually scan those 1,000 rows that we retrieve, we scan the content as well as we actually scan the structure of the schema. Once this execution have completed, you can see that sensitive data have been found. Once I'll go to details, I have a full table explaining me which type of sensitive data was discovered, under which column, under which table, and also I have the option to create my masking rules and auditing rules. Sensitive data discovery can also be used once you'd like to move a specific database outside of your organization, and you would like to scan that it doesn't contain any sensitive information. This also provides you the option to scan your database. So just in order to summarize sensitive data discovery, we retrieve data from the database, we do not store it, and we scan it according to multiple types of regulation in order to know where is the sensitive information is located inside of the database, and then we provide you to generate auditing and masking rules according to your own needs. Going forward to database activity monitoring. Database activity monitoring provides you the option to actually monitor multiple aspects of the database. So once I'm going to monitoring, I can create 4 different rule types. The first one is administrative rule type, meaning I would like to audit any administrative access that is happening in the database. So just as an example, I'll create this rule. Once this rule is created, I will just run a basic DBA task like backup, for example. Once I execute this backup command, and you can see this progress that is running now, I've just backupped a specific database to my computer from the database server. And this is something that DBAs most of the time never actually execute. And I'll go to GreenSQL, I'll go to the proxy events, and you can see now the process to the database. So we can see a short description of the command that was just executed, which is a backup command to the database. We can see that the command was successful. At the lower part of the screen, we can see the full query that was actually executed. And as part of the session details, we can see when it was executed, which user was used to execute this command, which application was used, which databases was actually affected and was used, and I have all the information I need in order to actually mitigate or learn or study what exactly have happened. Part of the auditing, the second type of rule that we can create is actually a table-based. And a table-based means up to a column level configuration. For example, I'll choose the database, and as part of the, let's continue with AdventureWorks, under sales, I'm able to define that anytime someone access my card information, card type, and also credit card ID, please alert me right away. It doesn't matter if someone is trying to view, modify, or delete information inside of these locations, please alert me right away. GreenSQL can send alerts over email, over syslog. We can load all those events to a remote database so you can do it at whatever you're interested. And we also have a pre-configured reports according to the regulation requirements. So this third type of rule that I can create is actually a store-based, a store procedure-based. So I can choose the specific store procedure that I like to be alerted anytime someone is actually executing those store procedure. And the third type that I can create is actually login events. So anytime there's any login events to the database, I will be alerted. Many times multiple regulation and compliances require this type of auditing, but besides the regulation, knowing any time that there is a failed log into the database, maybe someone is running a brute force attempt to the database, maybe someone have just forgotten to update some connection string to the database set, but you'll be alerted right away. Going forward, we're going to dynamic data masking. Dynamic data masking provides you the option to actually be in control regarding the exposure of sensitive data from the database, meaning you can truly mitigate the exposure of sensitive data for a DBA. So first of all, let's go through how exactly it's been configured. As a DBA, I'm able to be exposed to any sensitive information I'm interested. For example, we'll go to the human resource employee. I will just choose to retrieve data. And as you can see now, I'm exposed to social security numbers and login IDs and titles and whatever sensitive data there is. And because I use an SA, you cannot even limit my access to this sensitive location. Using GreenSQL, we'll go to masking. I will create a new rule. These rules can be created manually or using the sensitive data discovery. Under the database, I will choose the specific location that includes the sensitive data. In this example, it was under employee, the login ID, and national ID numbers. Once I chose those columns, I'm able to choose an applicable masking behavior. Only the applicable masking behavior will be shown in this configuration level. So in this example, I'm just choosing mask all. Once I chose mask all and I created this rule, anytime that a DBA will execute such a command, the information will be masked. The most important part to understand is that the data at rest in the database remains the same. We only mask the visibility part, only the view. Actually, it can be called as on-the-fly masking. So once I'm able to mask the sensitive information for DBA access, for ETL processes, for application in a training division, in a testing division, and so on, I'm able to truly manage and control the exposure of sensitive data. We took masking to one step forward, meaning besides dynamically masking a column level, we are the only company that support masking views, masking store procedures, and also we have a row level masking. Just in order to give you an example what you can do with GreenSQL, for example, I would like only that a design engineer that you can see in a different column will be exposed to the sensitive data. So I'm able to edit this rule, check this tiny checkbox of conditional masking, choose a different location inside of this table that includes a specific date, and I will do, please mask it anytime that is not equals to design engineer in this example. So anytime, and let's just see it, anytime that a design engineer row have been retrieved from the database, the data will be exposed. As you can see here now, a design engineer can actually view the sensitive information. Let's just make it a little bit more visible by editing this rule, and the masking should be empty. Once I chose empty and re-executed the query, we can truly see that only a design engineer will be exposed to this information. And just in order to make sure that the data is the same, I'll just delete this rule. And once this rule is deleted, you can see that all the information is still in the database and only the visibility level have been masked earlier. So just to sum up the dynamic data masking part of GreenSQL, we provide you a column level and also a row level masking according to your own needs. We support masking of store procedure, of use, and any type of retrieval data from the database. We provide multiple masking behavior that you can add according to your own need, and also the database and the application level are completely transparent to any masking enforced that you do. So we went through database security, sensitive data discovery, database auditing, and also dynamic data masking. We can see that during the flow of using with the database, the multiple components provide you a full control regarding what's happening at the database. The database firewall will decide who should have even the option to connect. The segregation of duties can define who will have administrative access or not. You will be able to audit and to mask any type of the different usage with the database itself. So this was a quick demo regarding seeing GreenSQL in action. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us anytime at www.greensql.com or inside of our Facebook page, LinkedIn page, and also please follow our Twitter. So thank you very much for your time and have a wonderful day.